So once again, thank you very much for being here, and I will go on while waiting for Director Manuela Geleng from the European Union, DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, European Commission. I will just move on to introduce the panelists who are already here with us. So we have the honor and the pleasure to welcome to this session Rina Solman, Minister of Population, Manuela Geleng, who will be joining us shortly, I hope.
She's just joined, Amal. She's just joined.
Oh, so we're very, very happy to have her on board. So welcome to Manuela Geleng, Director, DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, European Commission. Karen Maguire, Head of the Local Employment, Skills and Innovation Division at the OECD CFE. Antonella Noia, Head of the Social Economy and Innovation Unit within the LESI division, with whom I work. Nina Arjo, I'm sorry if I mispronounce any names, really apologies if I do. Nina Arjo, Civil Society Advisor, Ministry of Interior. Helen Mikov, Director of Social Enterprises Estonia. I would also like to thank the co-organizers of this launch, Martin Lauri and Nina Harjo. And I would like now, for the formal and official launch of the report, I would ask Karen Maguire to show the report and to virtually hand it to Ms. Rina Solman.
So good afternoon, and thank you, Minister Solman. So we will do this in a virtual format. It is our great pleasure to officially deliver to you this report, Boosting Social Entrepreneurship and Social Enterprise Development in Estonia.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Amal, for the introduction. And thank you, European Commission and OECD representatives. So first of all, welcome everyone, and may I ask, I'm very sorry if I have to take my glasses off because of the foggy all the time, but I'm trying to be able to discuss these things together with my glasses. So welcome to everyone one more time. And I am really delighted that after having to cancel the initially planned launch of the report, we have all adjusted with a new type of world, and we can finally all gather virtually for this event, adjusted with the new type of the world. It is great to see that so many of you have been able to join us today over Zoom, and I like to thank all of you, your individual contribution. So one more thank. This report could not have been completed without the work and effort from all the experts from OECD and all of the Estonian experts from public, private and third sector. The development of social enterprises is also a topic that is close to my heart. How NGOs make it their mission to help solve various social problems whilst coming up with solutions how to be in a financially sustainable position to do so. It is a subject that is very important to me too. So let's start with the most exciting part of the event and have a discussion about the report.
Thank you very much, Minister Rina Solman, for these welcoming remarks. We do thank you dearly. I would like to kickstart this first round of questions and discussion with the two questions for you and for Mina Harjo as well. The first question would be, why is it important for Estonia to reflect on how to develop social entrepreneurship, especially during and after the COVID crisis?
Thank you. The crisis has taught us that the social entrepreneurship is in a bit of a no man's land here in Estonia. When we talk about social enterprises, we are not talking strictly about NGOs nor private enterprises. It can be either of those two and also falls somewhere in between. The crisis highlighted that, for example, when the government was preparing crisis support measures for various sectors, it went kind of ambiguity. It became very clear that we will need to be more prepared and clear on where exactly we stand, how is the position of social enterprises on this spectrum, and in what way we can best ensure that social enterprises can benefit from those kinds of support measures in the future. Whilst not the rule, most social enterprises in Estonia tend to be NGOs which work with communities and minorities. The economic crisis tends to affect mostly the people who are most vulnerable to changes. In addition, we see that social enterprises can be excellent partners in the time of crisis. Firstly, they are employers, as many traditional companies are, and are therefore offering livelihoods in the form of salaries. And secondly, social enterprises are inherently organizations that aim to create a positive social impact. Can't do it with my glasses. This crisis has truly highlighted the importance of those organizations that focus on finding new and creative solutions to support those who need it the most. And I am confident that social enterprises have an important role in our society in leading the way in that.
Thank you very much, Minister Solman. The other question is how and why do you think it has been important to work with OECD on this review that's funded by EC? Why did you ask for this in-depth review more specifically, and what were your expectations? And what do you think you can learn from this and have other countries learn from it?
Thank you. When we were offered the opportunity to have this report compiled in Estonia, we were just in the middle of putting together the civil society program for the next 4 years in Estonia. In that sense, it was perfect timing because a view from the outside and OECD's recommendations for further development in the field of social entrepreneurship came at the best possible time. But most important, some key issues that the report pointed out were also added to the civil society program. We know that OECD had completed similar reports in other countries, and this really helped us position Estonia in the international context. On the other side, what OECD has highlighted in other countries is a valuable learning point for us here in Estonia. When representatives of OECD visited us here in Estonia back in May 2019, many discussions were held regarding experiences from other countries. What did we learn? We already knew that the development of social entrepreneurship is linked to many different organizations from various sectors. However, when we started to put together a list of interviews for the report, then OECD pointed out new potential partners who also make a contribution to the field, for instance, banks, Startup Estonia, and so forth. The circle of organizations that make an input is much larger than we originally thought. On the whole, Estonia has much potential in connection to the innovative tech approach. We have Tigrihüpe, the ambition for a Rohetigrihüpe, to social economic development. Our people are used to innovation, and being a change maker is something we are proud to call ourselves. We now see us as a nation also clearly that although social economy has been an outsider, we can develop it into main player. Another interesting aspect that we noticed was that when we initially sent our invitations for the interviews, then many organizations were not too sure why they were being invited for the interviews. They presumed that they wouldn't have too much to say or add to this topic, and their role in the process would be a minimal. In the end, what happened was that almost all the interviews went over their time, and those organizations started to see their importance in this subject, as well as where they fit in the bigger picture. It is important to reflect, since social enterprises in Estonia are mostly NGOs which work with communities and minorities. The economic crisis tends to have the biggest effect on who are the most vulnerable to changes. On the whole, our experience collaborating with the OECD was great. I really admire that the attention to detail and depth of research that OECD went to in matters related to Estonia. They knew the right questions to ask and the right people and organizations whom to ask those questions from. And I would highly recommend other countries to participate in the same process should they be offered this opportunity as we had. Thank you. Amal, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Minister Solman. I'm really glad to hear, and as I'm sure my colleagues are, to hear that the timing was perfect and that OECD delivered something that matches your needs in terms of expanding the reach of social enterprises beyond just working with minorities and vulnerable groups. And also you are a nation of innovation, so these are things that could tie in quite nicely. Now I would like to give the floor to Director Manuela Gelang. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing quite well. If I'm not, I'm really sorry. About what is the EC currently doing to support social economy and social enterprises. Director Manuela, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good afternoon to you all. Before I answer your question, I think I would like to express my thanks to Minister Solman for hosting this event, and extending these thanks also to representatives of public authorities that are and of stakeholders that are here with us today, as well as the OECD. Now, what has done the Commission so far? Well, since we adopted the Social Business Initiative in 2011, I think we have come a long way and worked to improve several aspects of the ecosystem for social economy and social enterprises. The Social Business Initiative had 5 main work streams. One was boosting access to finance, improving access to markets, 3, strengthening regulatory frameworks, 4, exploring to facilitate digitalization and the use of new business models, and finally supporting social economy development international. Now, I will not focus on all of them, but let me focus the area on the area of access to finance, because indeed EU funding through the Programme for Employment and Social Innovation, which has also co-funded this review, has increased the supply of finance for social enterprises as well as microfinance for vulnerable groups and micro-enterprises. Since the launch of our guarantee instrument 5 years ago, 130 guarantee deals have been signed with financial intermediaries across Europe for microfinance and social enterprises. And the important thing to note is that with every euro invested by the EU, it has generated some additional euros in additional investment. With the next multi-annual financial framework, so with the next budget of the EU, which, as you all know, still needs to be approved, we will continue our funding support for social enterprises and social economy. The new InvestEU fund, we will have a dedicated social investment and skills window, which will build on our achievements so far and continue mobilizing public and private support for social investments. Also, the European Social Fund will continue strengthening the social dimension, as well as the new Recovery and Resilience Facility. So my call here would be really to make use as much as possible of these funding sources for supporting the social economy and social enterprises. Besides funding, the Commission is also working to improve the framework condition. We have done a study, a comparative European mapping study of social enterprise ecosystem covering 36 European countries, including Estonia, that provides a good overview of all aspects of social enterprise ecosystems across Europe. Another study looking at the impact of the social business initiative shows that the political and legal recognition of social enterprises and social economy has largely improved in Europe over the years. Overall, 21 member states have adopted new legislation or policy frameworks related to the social economy since 2011. And EU co-funding has often supported key measures, either with the European Social Fund or with the European Regional Development Fund. For instance, the ESF alone has supported something like 1 billion of actions in the area of support to social enterprises. In addition, in cooperation with the OECD, we have developed Better Entrepreneurship online tool to help policymakers and other stakeholders at local, regional, and national level to improve public policies to foster social and inclusive entrepreneurship. And I invite you to share your impressions and feedback on this tool, as it has been also made a reference to it in the report we are discussing today. Another important element of our work has been to facilitate social enterprises' access to market. We want to encourage both public authorities and traditional enterprises to procure goods and services from social enterprises. And for this, we will soon issue an updated and hands-on buying social guide to help contracting authorities make the most out of the public procurement legal framework. At the same time, we will also looking at disseminating good practices. And last but not least, I think we are actively promoting the visibility of social economy at EU, but also at regional and local levels. And since 2018, around 100 cities and regions have organized awareness events across Europe and have joined our network of European social economy regions. And actually, I'm taking this opportunity to call on you, whether you are local or regional public authorities, to take part in these initiatives in the future, as they usually are the starting point for inspiring exchanges and help build capacity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing all these thoughts and all what the European Commission is doing, and we are extremely glad that the OECD to collaborate with you to advance research and findings and recommendations on social enterprises in most EU countries. Now, I will hand the floor to Karen Maguire, and I'm asking her to tell us a bit more about the role of the OECD LEAD program and why it has started exploring the issue of social entrepreneurship more than 2 decades ago.
Thank you, Amal, and good afternoon to everybody. And first, again, great thanks to Minister Solman for your presence today. And unfortunately, we haven't had as sufficient innovations in some of our protective gear to help make this as pleasant as possible. But hopefully there's a business opportunity that maybe a social enterprise can take up. We also just really want to thank again Mina Harji, Martin Laurie, and Kersti Ringmans from the Ministry of the Interior for all of their help throughout the process. And then, of course, as well to the European Commission in particular, Manuela Gelang, for being here today and for supporting this work, which is really a collaboration between the two entities. I just wanted to say a little bit of the context on why the OECD has picked up on this for the last couple of decades, and it's really because we have some work at the OECD. We have a program called the Local Employment and Economic Development Program. And this program at the OECD was founded actually almost 40 years ago, but at a time when there was concern about the inability for certain policies to really address entrenched problems of unemployment and inclusion that were not effective in responding to country needs. And so they came together at the OECD. And the goal of the program has always been to think about how to improve policy implementation, scale up innovative practices, and build capacities so that the national and perhaps even supranational levels provide the frameworks for these ecosystems to thrive, but also for this exchange on practically what works on the ground and what lessons can be taken from one side from one country to the other. So the spirit of peer exchange is really at the core of the work of the lead committee. And so why did we start thinking about social economy, social entrepreneurship, social innovation? Well, it was in large part because they help us with three critical areas that are at the core. One is inclusion, another is innovation, and a third is impact. And so if we think about how all of these aspects of the social economy and social entrepreneurship help our local, national governments and beyond to better address those needs, social entrepreneurship, social innovation really become key drivers and motivators for this. Now, first, in terms of inclusion, because as was mentioned a few moments ago, a lot of entities are specifically targeting those that are often disadvantaged in the labor market. But above and beyond that, we actually just see the scale in terms of employment across many countries. Some estimates from a few years ago for Europe of 6.3% of employment, but in some countries it's actually even much higher. In France, estimates about 14% of private sector employment. In Spain, it accounts for 2 million jobs, almost 13% of working age population employment. So we really see the power of this sector, not only for inclusion of particular populations, but really for its impact more broadly in the economy. Another area in terms of how to support innovation and impact is, we're struggling with a number of mega trends, and some have been capitalized on and some remain challenges. But if you think of aging, migration, digitalization, greening, these are all areas where innovation is critical, and social enterprises and the social economy are often at the forefront of thinking about how to tackle these global challenges in ways that maybe others hadn't thought of. And so this is why another area where we see at the OECD, this sector can have a really tremendous impact. And I know, Estonia is a global leader in embracing digitalization and being extremely effective in supporting entrepreneurship through a lot of digital tools. And of course, this is a great asset for supporting social entrepreneurship more generally. And of course, this is also an area where with the pandemic, digitalization has become a greater imperative on the part of social enterprises and social entrepreneurs and the social economy more generally, but also as a tool and opportunities that can be seized by the social economy, whether it's digital platforms to organize volunteers, whether it's digital platforms to generate ideas and to crowdsource or do hackathons, etc. And I know you've had some experiences in that with Estonia. But these are all areas that are at the core of what we try to focus on in terms of local economic development and peer exchange. And of course, there's even more that can be done to remove barriers in the policy ecosystem that Manuela just referred to as well, in order to get the most potential benefit for this inclusion, innovation, and impact. And so this review, as you alluded to, Minister Solman, is part of a series, and it's the 10th, I believe, in the series, and a couple more are currently in the works with strong collaboration with the European Commission, and it's also accompanied by a number of tools. And as Manuela mentioned, the Better Entrepreneurship Policy toolkit that has been developed to support different stakeholders who want to use it, and as was a call earlier for not only national level but subnational level to take advantage of it, to really understand what are the opportunities and barriers in your local area as well. And that also there are a number of practical guides and policy briefs that can support your work. So all of this is just to say that we're extremely pleased to be able to support Estonia in its development of this tool, which from the perspective of OECD's work on local employment and economic development is really an amazing catalyzer for all sorts of positive change and impacts for our national economies and for our societies. So thank you, Amal, for the introduction.
Thank you very much, Karen. And I pretty much, it was music to my ears to listen that you have actually maybe started even a motto on social enterprises, the power of the 3 E's, inclusion, innovation, and impact. So we really are pleased to launch this in-depth review today, and to get to know more about the main findings of the report and the main policy recommendations. I'm giving the floor now to Antonella Noia, head of the Social Economy and Innovation Unit, that would to present some of the main findings, as I said, and recommendations to boost social entrepreneurship development in Estonia. So the floor is yours, Antonella.
Thank you very much, Amal, for your kind introduction. And thank you very much, Minister Solman, the Secretary of State, and Mina and Kirsty to be here with us. Thank you very much, Manuela Geleng, also to be here. And as I was mentioning before, my only regret is not to be physically in Tallinn, which is a city which I very much love. So let's go. Can you see the slide?
Not yet, Antonella. You have to share your screen.
I think it is what I wanted to do, but I will do it right now. Okay. So now you should see the slide.
Not yet.
Well, sorry. It worked before, of course, and it is not working now. So I'll do another attempt. If it doesn't work, I will ask Sorel to do it for me, although I'm not happy about this. Sorel, no, please go ahead. It seems that I can't. Sorry.
Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, we are now. But
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we are here to launch the Social Entrepreneurship and Social Enterprise Development in Estonia review. I don't need to add more, apart from personal thanks to the European Commission for giving us the possibility to do this review, which apparently are helping Estonia like they did for the countries that we previously revised. So Sorel, you can move to show again the the cover, the official cover. And I want to thank also the Estonian authorities for having translated the report into Estonian, which means that I will only present some of the main important policy recommendations and strengths and weaknesses that we have analyzed, and you can read all the other in your own language. You can move, Sorel, to the next slide. So very quickly, so the objective of the reviews is to provide tailored recommendation and an action plan for the government to implement this recommendation with the timeline that we have foreseen. And these policy recommendations stem from an analysis of the policy ecosystem of social entrepreneurship and on an assessment of strengths and weaknesses of the existing policy. And we have a methodology which has proved to be effective, and the great work done by the European Commission in the last years to map the landscape of social entrepreneurship and social enterprises in each of the European countries has made our life clearly easier. So based on this, then we came to the country. Some of you might remember the visit. And now when we were back to Paris, we prepared the report, and now we launch it, and we hope to have some follow-up activities with you should you be interested in this. One can be, for instance, using the tool, the Better Entrepreneurship tool, to assess and to monitoring the progress that you might do with the implementation of the recommendation. Go ahead, Sorel, thank you. So I will insist on the ecosystem approach because this is what we look at. And you see that there are three main challenges, three main needs that exist for social enterprises, not only in Estonia, but all over the world. So there is a need to enhance awareness, recognition, and visibility for social enterprises. And you know better than me that this is very much important in your country because there is confusion about the understanding of what social enterprise is. And of course, confusion generates lack of recognition and visibility. Then there is a need to make support available to increase skills and to offer development, business development support, and to empower also social enterprise to manage, measure, and report their impact, which is to some extent also an element of their visibility because they can then prove what they do. And then, of course, you as a government and as policymaker are very much interested in opening up opportunities for social enterprises, mainly through access to finance and access to market. So, Sorel, you can move to the other slide. Okay, and these are the areas that we have analyzed, which as part of the ecosystem that we see as integrated. So we do not look at this area as silos, isolated silos, but we look at the interconnection of all the areas because this is what works. It has a limited impact, for instance, just going for a law. If you are not ready to create those opportunities for tailored finance for social enterprises, or you are not using what the public procurement offers in terms of using social clauses or explicit mechanisms to support social enterprises. So it has really to be looked in an integrated way. So before going to analyze the different key policy areas, I wanted to say that the minister said that the COVID showed that social enterprises and social entrepreneurship is a sort of no man's land. And but we think that with the impact that the COVID crisis has had in the country, in spite of the package, the measure to support workers and business during the pandemic, social enterprises, social entrepreneurship can become part of the solution to address all the challenges stemming from the COVID, including the fact that the large group of low-skilled workers that Estonia has recently integrated into the labor market may have difficulties to find new jobs if they are rejected by the market. So go ahead, Sorel. So building a culture of social innovation and entrepreneurship is essential because they can contribute simultaneously to economic growth and social sustainability. And for them to achieve this objective, putting in place conducive policies is important. And among the strengths that we identified in your country, there are the new opportunities for public sector innovation. I am referring here explicitly to two structures that have been established quite recently, the Innovation Lab in 2018 and the Accelerate Estonia in 2019. And the Innovation Lab, which sits in the government office strategy units, provide networking and training opportunities for civil servants, while and was planning to train 600 policymakers in design method and develop incremental innovation. So this is certainly something which is very promising. And Accelerate Innovation, which sits and it is created by the Ministry of Economic Affairs, based inside Startup Estonia, aims to generate disruptive innovation to tackle with the policy problems. So Accelerate Estonia is focusing on 8 priority public policies areas, which are to some extent all linked to social entrepreneurship and social innovation, social welfare, labor market, the circular economy, health, energy transition, the real-time economy. And so even those initiatives are relatively new, they are promising and highly complementary. So they represent a strength, together with the vibrant startup ecosystem and the growing corporate social responsibility culture. So in spite of the fact that Estonia is a small country, you have at least you had 4 unicorns, and the community is particularly strong in the field of software as a service and fintech, but it is increasingly covering a diversity of sector. And there is also a growing culture of social responsibility, which could stimulate social innovation because companies try to raise their ethical standard. And you have the Responsible Business Forum, which is leading a force on this front. But in spite of this strength, of course, there are some weaknesses. And one of these is what we were mentioning before, the lack of a common understanding of social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And this is because possibly what the Social Innovation Task Force, which was set for 2 years back in 2016, was focusing into a narrow scope and look at only at social enterprises, which are an important part, of course, of social innovation landscape, but this narrow focus might have limited the impact of the social innovation and translated then in a limited understanding of this concept. So, and another result of this limited understanding can be also the fact that there are still limited policies, fundings, and institutions and networks to support social innovation. So what we suggest is that Estonia could boost social innovation by relaunching the Social Innovation Task Force, and the task force could be responsible for developing a national strategy articulated with national, regional, and local development plans to stimulate and scale up innovation, social entrepreneurship, and social enterprises. And based on the some recommendation already undertaken by the task force at the time, and also recommendation of this report, the task force could adopt official definition of social innovation, social entrepreneurship, and social enterprises, which will be endorsed by the government and the relevant ministry. And I want to draw your attention on something which is also very important, which is the use of challenges prizes. Challenges prizes are used in many European and non-European countries, and for instance, they are an important element for the US government strategy on innovation. And these are prizes that are awarded to teams which can identify a problem, a social problem, and identify and solutions. So they can obviously complement the traditional methods that you are already using, research grants, commissioning services, and innovation lab, but they seem to be effective also because they can be focused on one of the main challenges to deal with. You can move, Sorel, the slide. Okay, so this is an important element of the ecosystem, institutional and legal framework, and the OECD is doing an impressive work on legal framework, both for social economy and social enterprises, again with the support of the European Commission. But I think that Karen will give some additional information on the work that we are doing on this later on. So what are the strengths in your country? You have important strengths because there is an institutional framework already in place to support entrepreneurship development at national and regional level. So you have a number of ministries which are looking at the portfolio of social entrepreneurship to some extent, the Ministry of Interior, which manages the civil society portfolio. And because you have a vibrant social society, which can be the entry door for social entrepreneurship, you have a very important role in this. And then the Ministry of Finances, which notably manages the European structural investment funds from the European Commission, and the Ministry of Social Affairs. So you all provide support to commercial enterprises, including social enterprise in the form of limited company, and non-profit organization, including social enterprises in the form of an association or foundation. And the strength of the municipality and regional development center is also a strength because they have been given stronger competencies to support socio-economic development. And for instance, the regional development country offer free counseling and mentoring to startup, to non-profit association and foundation. So there are many elements that you do not need to start from scratch. You can tap into what you already have, but and this is not specific to Estonia, because there are other countries we have seen in which we have the same problem, but there is a lack of coordination across government levels and existing public policy. So because coordination is a key in the implementation of all the strategies conducive to the development, of social entrepreneurship, it is important that you can identify coordinating structures and clarify their role and mission. One example, for instance, the Prime Minister Office and the unit in charge with the SDG coordination could coordinate public action to boost the development of social enterprises, and more broad, promote the development of the national ecosystem while ensuring coherence between the different levels. And the Social Innovation Task Force, and the Regional Development Center could act as one-stop shops offering advisory services and financial resources. So these are suggestions that might help to fix those challenges. Sorel, you can move to the other slides, which is focusing now on legal framework. So you, among the strengths, and which is linked also to the to what is to what I was before. Among the weaknesses is also the lack of explicit and focused policy to develop social enterprises. But this is clearly the result of maybe the lack of understanding of what they are and what they can contribute with. But clearly the lack of these politics undermine the development, and the same problem exists for example for an opportunity, I'm sorry to say so, that you might have missed, because for instance in the operational program for the European Cohesion Policy 2014-2020, you have not highlighted the role played, it has not allocated any structural funds. So with the new seasoning program and with the opportunity that Manuela Galeng has just mentioned, you have here a great opportunity to provide explicit and focused policies on social enterprises. And then there is the big problem of the legal forms that are available to social enterprises. And this is at the same time a strength and weaknesses, because overall in your country, most of the social enterprises adopt the legal form of association and therefore qualify for the public benefit status. And this confers them a number of privilege in terms of income tax and the right to receive donation and so on and so forth. However, there are restrictions on economic activities that association can undertake, which clearly hinders them to grow by tapping into market opportunity. And regarding social enterprises that adopt, on the other way around, a legal form of limited company, there is no tax breaks or incentive, such as employing volunteers, which sometimes forces the entities in your country to adopt hybrid forms, but these create obviously additional burden. So what we suggest is that the government could adopt a new official definition of social enterprises. And I am not suggesting that this should be done through a law, unless you want to do through a law, but the The definition could aim at remove the barriers for the organizations that I was mentioning before, and could be aligned with the European and OECD definition. So the government could extend the scope of the public benefit status to limited companies and commercial associations, and allow associations to generate profits from trade. And this would ultimately increase the visibility and recognition of social enterprises and unlock their potential for growth. So I insist on this because raising awareness, visibility, and recognition would certainly unleash the potential of social enterprises for growth. And of course, once that this official and operational definition, which should make clear the social orientation of the social enterprises, would be adopted, of course, you can embed it into the strategies that you are preparing for the years to come. So you can move to the other slide, Sorel. And there are, as you know, financial opportunities in your countries for social enterprise, but especially when they take the form of SMEs. We can say in general that financial landscape for social development in Estonia is embryonic, and therefore there is an immediate need to examine both the demand and the supplied side for finance for social enterprises, and also to fix the flows of what already exists, because if there are opportunities for social enterprises adopting the status of SMEs and legal company, unfortunately, these are not the majority of social enterprises in your country, because 93% of social enterprises in your country adopt rather are non-profit. So they are enabled to access starter loans, loans guarantees, subordinated loans, for instance, from Credex, or startup grants from the regional development centers. So you are missing the very important part of the social enterprises landscape, and which has an additional, generate an additional problem, because of course these entities which do not have the form of SMEs and which need funds are experimenting difficulties even in obtaining loans and guarantee from the bank, because the banks are not yet well acquainted with the nature and the mission of social enterprises, and so they really struggle to get their funds, which means that they use personal saving, the cash coming in from the first sales, and this obviously is the beginning of a vicious circle. It's difficult then to develop. And of course, there is a limited development of the social investment market. Although you are looking, I think, to social impact bonds, but maybe it would be wiser, rather than going straight to the social impact bonds, to try and shape a social investment market in which some social finance can be offered to social enterprises. So we suggest that you should remove those legal barriers that hinders all social enterprises to access equally to the same resources that can be available for mainstream business, and that you set up an intermediary which can act as a social investment market builder. And in the first time, it can maybe work on a pipeline of social enterprises to accompany to grow, and then to really to start to set the social impact market. Sorel, you can move, and I can quickly go towards the end of my presentation. So, as you know, access to market, be this public or private, as Manuela Geleng was mentioning before, it is really also important to promote commercial cooperation between social enterprises and private business. But access to market in Estonia, access to public market represent a significant market with a total value of 2 billion euros, which represent 13% of your GDP and 35% of the state budget. So at the same time, Estonia has been very good to advance the use of technology and innovation in public procurement. And in fact, it has been at the forefront of electronic public procurement. And it is also continuing to its effort, which started a decade ago, to use public procurement to advance environmental objectives. But there are still some roadblocks, and one of it is the fact that in spite of the opportunities offered by the European Directive on public procurement, you still tend to stick to the lowest price criterion in the bidding offers. And also there is, and this is common to other countries, to be honest, there is a lack of skills among the public sector officials, in spite of the fact that in your country some public officials are using the assessment method of the most economically advantageous tenders, which allow consideration of bidding offers based on criteria beyond the prices, for instance, qualitative, technical, and sustainable aspect. In spite of this, there is still a lack of skills. And this lack of skills can be found also on the side of social enterprises who struggle to understand how to procure for social value. So clearly the policy action here will be to enhance capacity. And for instance, the government could develop a training action plan based on the result of the Social Innovation Task Force assessment across the relevant ministry to identify the training needs of officials and to provide training. And the training action could also be complemented with a monitor mechanism for its implementation. And another idea could be, on the top of these official training opportunities provided for public officials, to create a group of officials from different ministries who deal with the sustainable procurement that can stimulate knowledge sharing and peer-to-peer learning when it comes to concrete implementation of social and environmental consideration. And this cross-ministry group should be comprised of technical level officials from relevant ministries. And this is also something which will increase this culture of coordination among ministries, which seems to be also something that you will have to look at as a government. So I'm running towards the end of my presentation.
5 minutes, Antonella, thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting there. You can move the slides. Okay, so in your country, we have just discussed lack of skills in specific areas, but of course, there are growing opportunities for social entrepreneurship education in your country you have a number of strategic frameworks that allow to design and implement a program, the Entrepreneurship Education Development Plan, Be Enterprising, and more recently, the Estonian Entrepreneurship Growth Strategies to 2014-2020, and then the Estonian Lifelong Learning Strategies and the Youth Field Development Plan. So all these provide opportunity for education, and there are also good availability of capacity building and business development support. SMEs receive support from Enterprise Estonia, Startup Estonia, non-profit from the National Foundation for Civil Society. And as I was mentioning before, the Regional Development Center are also active to provide a set of support service and program to a wide range of organizations and individuals. But still, there are social entrepreneurs, and this again is not a peculiarity of the Estonian landscape, but this is something that we constantly see in other countries which we review. There is a lack of business skills among some would-be social entrepreneur, and especially skills in measuring their social impact, which is becoming more and more important, not only because of the shrinking of public resources, but also because of the increasing call coming from society to all business, after all, but especially on social enterprises, to prove their impact. So this is a strength which needs to be, a weaknesses which needs to be fixed, and also there are again legal forms that can hinder some kind of social enterprises, depending on the legal status of form they adopt, to access to these services. So the solution will be obviously to extend and diversify the capacity building offers for social entrepreneurs. And this support could be funded by the National Foundation for Civil Society and delivered, for instance, by the regional development centers, or you could create maybe a new intermediary with funding from the European Social Fund Plus for the new season 2021-2027. And of course, it is important here again to ensure an equal access of social and mainstream enterprises to business development program. I think I have finished. I think I couldn't have been more comprehensive in the time which is allocated to me. You can read the report at this link, and if you want to have more information on the activity that we undertake very often in cooperation with the European Commission, please have a look at our webpage, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Antonella, for this very comprehensive presentation of the main findings and the recommendations of the in-depth review. Before starting a round of reactions from panelists and allowing for a discussion, I would like just to remind all the participants that you can use the chat function to make comments, ask questions, and we'll be more than happy to address them during the discussion. So I will start the first round of reaction by asking Minister Solman what she thinks of the very actionable list of recommendations that are made in the report. As you've heard, there are coordination issues maybe that should be addressed with maybe a better work between the Task Force on Social Innovation and the Regional Development Centers, maybe questions raised about an operational definition of social enterprises and so on and so forth. I would like to have, first of all, your few reactions about these policy recommendations, and what do you think you will implement, which are the recommendations that are very easily implemented if you decide to start acting upon what the report has brought about. Thank you very much. Mina Arjo can also jump in and reply. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal. Thank you, Antonella. It was a really good report, and your feedback, I took some notes. So maybe the Estonian, my actually companions, they know that my path to politics started actually from being an NGO activist. So I feel like at home with this topic. So I took some notes. I liked really this using challenge prizes to stimulate the social innovation and training action plan. But I think that overall the report shows that we are on the right track with developing social entrepreneurship. Our strategic partner, Social Enterprise Estonia, also makes a big contribution, and I hope that we will continue these cooperations in the future next year. And due to the unexpected and unpredicted times we are currently facing now, we have not yet taken big steps in terms of these recommendations within this year. However, a number of things have been initiated. For example, the subject of the definition for social enterprises, and we are hoping to establish a competency center for social innovation in Estonia. And Minna will certainly explain more detail later. And hopefully next year, once our new strategic partners for the next few years have been confirmed, we can move forward with recommendations more actively. But on the other hand, it is also important to change the mindset and promote a culture of social innovation and social entrepreneurship. These are, of course, long-term processes. Results do not come in a year, but everything we do is a step in that direction. And your second question was, how are we planning on implementing some of these policy recommendations? We will, of course, we will do our best, but it will take some time, as I mentioned, and the picture will also become clearer once we have established our strategic partners for the next period. And some things, such as mapping the needs of social enterprises, are already in work. For instance, Social Enterprise Estonia is currently working on the mapping of skills needs. But I am confident that the next year will bring a lot more clarity. Would you like to?
Yeah, I think the minister covered pretty much everything. I will certainly give you a few more details regarding the Social Innovation Competency Center later on. But for the time being, I think the minister covered it.
Thank you very much both for your reactions, and very glad to hear that you have already started working on skills and mapping the needs for skills development and for the definition of maybe a much more working definition on social enterprises, because most of the cases you can't support what you can define. So it's the question of definitions is very, very important. Moving on, I would like to ask now an operator in Estonia, who is Helen Mikov, the Director of Social Enterprises, Social Enterprise Development Estonia. We understand that Social Enterprises Estonia has been working on a definition of social enterprises that could be ready maybe by early 2021. Could you share a little bit more about this topic and how you plan to cooperate with your authorities on the issue of definition? Helen, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Amal, and all the previous presenters as well for your kind words and for the critical remarks as well. It is very beneficial for Estonia and for the development of social economy at large. To answer your questions more specifically, Amal, then yes, among our field, we have an unofficial definition of what is a mature social enterprise, how we see it and how we understand it. However, the current challenge, especially in this virtual area, is how to get in conversation and in dialogue with the private sector participants, with the banks, to have this co-creation part as well. Because on one hand, yes, we among ourselves understand what it is, but we need to continue more in developing what it will be and what it could be and what is the potential of social economy in Estonia. So in this sense, I also believe that it will take longer, maybe years even, we will see. But on a positive note, then we are also part of a consortium that is all Estonian players. And we are also supported by the European Programme for Employment and Social Innovation. And we started with project for actions to boost the development of finance markets for social enterprises. So part of this over a year long project, we are also being in very close contact with all the stakeholders to actually ensure that the official definition we will reach will actually benefit the big picture and will enhance the social economy in Estonia. And of course, the government is our close partner, since also so far Ministry of Interior has supported us the most in developing this field and the messages as well. So we also hope to continue with this cooperation and also to widen it to other ministries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. And it is true that what we have observed in many countries, that the process of defining social enterprises is usually something that's co-constructed between the government, the networks, and it is pretty much the right path to reach that. I would like to ask Manuela Gelong to tell us to what extent will the new EU multi-annual budget and the announced action plan for social economy open up new opportunities to further support the development of social entrepreneurship in EU in general, and maybe in how you can relate that to Estonia as well? You have to unmute.
There I am.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Well, first of all, coming back on the issue of definition, I think it's a very important aspect. Also, at European level, as you know, we don't have a definition of social economy precisely because it's such a diverse spectrum we are talking about. And in fact, when normally when we refer to social economy as such, we refer to a wide variety of enterprises and legal forms, which can range from cooperatives to mutual to undertakings, associations, and social enterprises. And I think what brings all social economy organizations together is actually their commitment to put people first and reinvest most of the profit in the social mission and the enterprises, and to provide goods and services that are good for the community. Social enterprises within this broad framework want to achieve with their commercial activity a positive impact on society, clearly, but beyond that they are also organized and managed on the basis of participatory principles, for instance by involving the workers or the customers in their business activity. It's clear though that this doesn't refer to a legal concept, but rather to a concept in general. Where we have at European level a legal definition is in the current EASY program, where if you want to access funding from social enterprises, you have to fulfill specific conditions and a specific definition of social enterprises. Now, coming back to your question, I think a social economy is really an important. Social enterprises are really a very important element in what the Commission has put forward in terms of strategy in these years, whether we speak about the communication on Strong Social Europe for Just Transitions, on the Circular Economy Action Plan, the communication on the European semester, when we speak about the skills agenda or the renovation weight. So you see that actually when we speak about social economy and social enterprises, we really touch on the most diverse policy areas. And this is rightly so, because we really want to put a focus on social enterprises, because we think that their economic business model has proven its worth. It's addressing societal problems, and there is still a lot of potential in many EU countries. If you look at the share of paid employment, social enterprises vary between 0.6 and 9.9 among member states. Estonia is more or less within the EU average, with the figure of 6.3, that's the EU average. So clearly, when we undertook the study to see how the social business initiative has delivered over the last 10 years, we have seen that there are still a number of challenges, but there are also opportunities that we need to take. So the social economy action plan that we plan for the end of next year should boost the enabling conditions for the social economy to thrive, with a view to create more jobs, foster upskilling, address environmental challenges, and strengthen communities, particularly at the local level. This is really important. And also what was just discussed, also enhance social innovation. So how are we coming to the social economy action plan? Actually, besides the study that I have mentioned, and which has actually interviewed over 300 stakeholders across Europe, we have also consulted through the consultation that was open until end of last month on the European social pillar. And we are also preparing, in the run-up to the social action plan, a number of discussions. And the major stakeholder event in this framework is the Social Economy Summit in May next year. And every month we have digital events to discuss the one or the other issue concerning social economy and social enterprises. So I really would also here invite you to take part in those discussions, because it is really together that we need to frame a European action plan for social economy that really serves the purpose of everybody in the EU. Our aim with the social economy action plan is really to support both public authorities and stakeholders to make sure that we have a European economy that really works for the people. I won't go into the financial aspects, as I have already mentioned them in my first intervention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And it's quite insightful indeed on why it is important to continue supporting the social economy and social enterprises, because it's precisely what you've said, which is that their share of in creating paid employment is increasing, and their legal forms are more and more appealing to a lot of people and organizations throughout the EU and beyond. So moving on to that, and we have seen that social economy organizations have been at the front line in most EU countries and beyond during this crisis. So I would like to see and to ask Karen to tell us a little bit more about the vision the OECD has on the role of the social economy to respond to the current crisis. We have produced a wonderful paper on social economy and COVID We have praised two main functions of the social economy that I will let Karen maybe touch upon and explain. And the other question is, what can the OECD do to support countries, in particular Estonia, in addressing the challenges arising from the crisis?
Great, thank you, Amal. Well, just a couple of points. I mean, I think it was just raised earlier, the unique characteristics of the social economy that really put people at the center, and this sort of co-design approach that is endemic to the sector that we think is particularly interesting. COVID has raised a number of issues. One of them is highlighted, and we actually had at our lead committee meeting, our program committee meeting, we actually had 2/3 of our delegates who actually reported that the social economy has increased in political importance in their countries. And so COVID has raised the political profile in many countries of what the social economy can do, in part because of this, what we would call a repair function of sort of stepping in and helping with these quick actions to support communities that are experiencing particular difficulty as a result of COVID. So very active on that front, but also given a shift in some countries about visions and social values, and the importance of using the social economy in a sense to transform. So this transformation role. And this is one where I think it's very interesting to think about how the social economy can be scaled in ways that help with this transformation, because typically NGOs tend to, a lot of them are focused on the repair function, but to be effective for the transformation function, sometimes you need a different sort of frameworks and economic opportunities in order to scale up. So the note, and we'll put it in the chat function so you can click on it, goes into a little bit of detail there. And I think, one of the other things that the note highlights is just, in order for them to effectively serve either the repair or the transformation function, they need to survive the crisis. And so, of course, this study was done prior to the outbreak of COVID. So I just flag in general that one of the challenges is that sometimes NGOs are not always included in some of these programs that have been used to help social economy organizations weather the storm. And so that's one area where we have a particular concern that we're at the OECD across countries in seeing how to ensure that this potential gets realized, because we have some reports from a number of countries, for example, Korea, about the worsening situation or drop in revenues, and around 85% of social enterprises, or in France, a recent study that said that around 95% of the work integrational social enterprises are experiencing significant drops in revenue. So the sort of supports, the policy supports to ensure that they can deliver and continue to deliver on both these repair and transformation roles. I think maybe I'll just flag, in this transformation role, of course, the green agenda is a very important one. And that's an area where, with the Commission, we're developing a brief in order to explore those opportunities. But it's really addressing all of those mega trends that I mentioned previously. Maybe then just to pass real quick to what are the things that the OECD can do that might be of interest to support Estonia as it goes forward. So one is the tool that was mentioned earlier that can be mobilized and used by many others. And we also have another report we can put in the chat function on regional strategies as well to support the social economy, where we did a little bit of a zoom on a handful of countries. If I'm not mistaken, it's France, Spain, Sweden, and Poland. But what we do have right now, which I think would be also great interest to Estonia, is a very large-scale global action in collaboration with the Commission to support social and solidarity economy ecosystems. And it includes the EU, but also a number of non-EU countries. And that includes, for example, Brazil, Mexico, India, Korea, the United States, and Canada, which are it's another opportunity to exchange with peers around the world to support some of the action items that you're taking to support the social enterprise sector. And it's going to focus a lot on the legal frameworks and measuring social impact. We were just talking earlier, I think Manuela raised the issue of the wide range of legal considerations across countries and what are the implications there. And this work will help to understand a bit the different contexts and how in countries with similar contexts they have been able to address sort of common problems. So this and the social impact and a number of other activities of peer learning partnerships with stakeholders across all of those 30 countries in the EU and beyond that are targets of this action. So that's one area, for example, in this just thinking of definitions on social enterprise, et cetera, where engaging in those discussions might inform your policies. And also, I would just flag that the local economic and employment development program at the OECD, we talk about these things on a regular basis through our work, and in particular hitting on questions of skills, which I think was just mentioned earlier, and its role in employment and other aspects of impact, and in particular on social innovation, where we're also developing more work in that field. And I know you just mentioned the competence center that you're developing. So I think there's a range of opportunities for us to continue to support Estonia through the global action, and we would invite you to join, of course, the LEAD program, and through the different projects that we're doing to continue the efforts that this study has launched. Thanks, Amal.
Thank you very much, Karen, and precisely to know how the OECD and EC could do what we can do to still help Estonia implementing the recommendations or engaging in the many actions we are we have launched at the OECD. I would like to ask Minister Riina Solman for a final word on how she sees how we could still continue further helping Estonia in implementing the recommendations, but also how she sees Estonia engaging in all the actions that Karen has just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Amal. We are in the process of analyzing how to employ the better entrepreneurship policy tool for the Estonian context. And we are aware that several countries use this tool already. So it is an exciting opportunity for us to explore and look into. EC OECD could support in educating and informing other higher officials and also government specialists who are not part of the social economy strategies. This would improve the cooperation and communication and ease the implementation of strategies on a national level. And of course, we hope that the OECD will continue keeping us updated with new and ongoing developments in the field of social entrepreneurship. Where possible, we are happy to collaborate, think along and share our experiences with other countries. And on the behalf of Estonian government, thank you so much for the contribution.
Thank you very much, Minister Solman. I would just like to finish this round of reactions with asking maybe Miina Harjo to tell us a little bit more about the project on social innovation, because as you've heard, we work on social innovation. We've been working on social innovation at the OECD for the last 20 years, but we have strong work coming on social innovation. So could you tell us a little bit more about the activities and how you want to approach social innovation in your ministry?
Sure, absolutely. Before I forget, I wanted to mention it earlier on as well. In terms of the Estonian translation of the report, this will be made available within the next week, because we do have the translation, but there are some sector-specific terms that we kind of have to manually edit before we can really distribute it. Now, in terms of the social innovation, we recently have submitted a joint proposal with social innovation organizations and some universities from other countries such as the UK, Poland, Denmark, and Germany. So the proposal is for the European Commission call for proposals, whereby different member states come together to form international consortiums. These consortiums then will kind of establish an environment where different countries who are at the time at different stages of social innovation, kind of in different stages of their development, can work together, can mentor each other, share best practices, share methods, and help to scale different social innovation practices at regional, national, and international level. So we're really excited for that. In Estonia, we are proud to have partners such as the Ministry of Social Affairs, Tallinn University, National Foundation for Civil Society, Center of Development for Võru County, and Social Enterprise Estonia. So if we're successful in obtaining the funding, which we really, really hope we are, then on a national level, we will establish a social innovation competency center, and this will become a part of the National Foundation for Civil Society. And the mission really is to empower the Estonian social innovation ecosystem and include regional, national, and international stakeholders from all sectors. And also to, what we've been thinking about more recently is to draft social innovation strategy for Estonia, which will then become kind of like the material that will set out the goals in this area for the forthcoming years, but also how we come to reach those goals. And also, of course, as the Minister already mentioned, in regards to social entrepreneurship and the development of this area, it was really lucky. We were lucky with the timing of the report. Because we managed to highlight lots of areas to do with social entrepreneurship in the civil society program for the next 4 years. And this program will also become part of the Population and Cohesive Society Development Plan, which is from 2021 to 2030. The scope of this development plan is much wider. It encompasses areas such as civil society, sustainable population, adaptation, integration, and also global Estonianness as well. So yeah, as already mentioned many times before, we understand that some of the problems for social businesses and NGOs who are operating in the public interest overlap in a lot of aspects, such as access to and diversification of finances, also access to know-how and skills that can help those areas to reach next levels in their development, but also questions of how to measure the impact, how to understand what sort of societal impact these sectors can make, and how Estonia can benefit from those sectors. We also still have quite a bit to go with regards to educating and raising awareness for the wider public and also public sector officials and policymakers on the benefits of social enterprises. And also, I think this also hinders one of the main prospects of attracting new talents into this sector, which is something that's clearly a big issue. So yeah, so we're trying to address those issues, and these areas are acknowledged and mentioned in the civil society program. And also, as Helen from Social Enterprise Estonia already mentioned as well, the definition for social entrepreneurship is underway. And we hope that this will eliminate some big roadblocks. So that's it for me, and also big thank you to OECD for this report and for highlighting all these important issues. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Nina. And well, you have a great program coming up here with the social innovation strategy and working on measuring the impact and education to raise awareness. That's exactly some of the points we work on in most of the in-depth reviews that we do, and as we did with you on your proper review. And the idea of attracting new talent, that's a great idea as well, to help raise the profile of social innovation and social enterprise in general among the certain public, especially young people. Well, the floor is now open to questions from participants. If anyone would like to raise any point or would like to ask a question to our panelists. I don't see any questions on the chat function. So maybe we can have either a little round from the panelists just for a final word on what you would again recommend on the policy recommendations, how Estonia can implement the recommendations, and if there are other programs or initiatives that could support also the recommendations. So who wants to go first? Manuela, would you like to go first?
Yes, I can, with pleasure. Actually, I first of all, I think we are very happy to see that this work that we have co-funded has really brought to some concrete actions. So we are very happy with that, and we also are very appreciative of all the steps that have been taken or will be taken, are already planned and programmed by the Estonian authorities. I think this is really very important and very, very positive. Two points, perhaps looking into the future, two strong calls from my side. First call is, I already mentioned both, but just as a final word, we are preparing this action plan on the social economy. So let me please again urge you to participate actively in the consultation process in the run-up to Mannheim conference, and participate in our discussions, because really we would like to hear everybody and have at the end an action plan that really addresses the issues that you, public authorities or stakeholders encounter when talking about social economy and social enterprises. Second strong call, please make the best of the investment opportunities that are there in the EU budget and in Next Generation EU. Social enterprises have been really mentioned in many policy frameworks, whether we speak about circular economy to the renovation of buildings, climate, environment, social. So there is always a place where you could have foresee funding for social economy, because we do think that this is an area where there is further possibility for job creation on one side. Secondly, setting up enterprises that have a social purpose is something also that attracts very much the young generation, who often wants to see their jobs have a social impact. So this is something that appeals also very much to Generation Z. And because COVID has had a very strong impact, particularly at the local level, and therefore the action of social enterprises, we precisely are active at the local level, is very important. So these are my concluding words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Manuela Gelang. Antonella, would you like to say a few words now that you've heard all the wealth of the comments from our panelists? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Amal. Yes, I also want to thank not only the government, but also the many participants who are with us, because although they are silent, most of them have been very active and in contributing to our collective thinking during the study visit. So it is also thanks to their contribution and views that we have been able apparently to shape a report and to issue recommendations which are being considered as useful. So thanks a lot to you all. I'm happy to see that since the last time we were in contact and since even the first occasion which we couldn't achieve to present the results of the study because of the COVID, many progress have been done. And I want to share with you something which is happening also in other countries. You are not the only one to take social innovation as a conducive ground, as a fertile ground to strengthen social enterprises' role. When we review the social entrepreneurship landscape in a country such as the Netherlands, in which there were many issues around defining social enterprises, not even legally speaking, but also give them a visibility around a definition. The way we collectively found to try and force them to think on social entrepreneurship was to attract their attention on social innovation, because social innovation is possibly something that can speak to the more. And the same thing we have seen in the countries we are currently reviewing. We are doing work with Slovenia, and Slovenia is also preparing social innovation programs in order to help social enterprises as well to become more innovative. And this is also the case for the Länder of Brandenburg in Germany, in which the language of social innovations might seem more conducive to push the reflection on social entrepreneurship. So this is something that I wanted to share with you. And although, as I was mentioning before, maybe the effort that you had done previously when you were setting the social innovation task force have maybe not rewarded you with all the results that you were expecting. I do think that now revisiting social innovation through strategies can represent a further step to the first one, which has for sure indeed prepared the ground for you now to prepare a strategy on social innovation, in which you also have an opportunity to use at least this operational definition of social enterprise, which can bring that clarity that policymakers need in order to support their development.
Thank you very much, Antonella. Karen, one final word from you as well.
Okay, thank you, Amal. Well, first, just maybe as we're closing here, just again to thank Minister Solman, the Undersecretary, and of course all of the stakeholders who participated to help inform the study in the government and of course outside in the social enterprise sector. And also, of course, we're very pleased to continue this collaboration with the European Commission, where we're able to really bring together, I think, the different tools to support actions that are leading to concrete results in countries. And we're very pleased that this comes at a time to support that thinking within Estonia. And as I mentioned, there are opportunities, and we'll follow up with the relevant colleagues about the global action that we mentioned, about the LEAD program. We'll follow up with you. And also just to highlight, and I'll put in the chat function, that for those of you who are on the call that are also not necessarily in the government, but are in other social enterprises or social innovation stakeholders, the OECD's Local Development Forum is also a tool that's accessible for everybody to get engaged in different discussions. And so I just put a link there, but if you're interested in any of those, please don't hesitate to contact the OECD Secretariat, and we'd be pleased to continue dialogue through our different activities to support your individual activities and policy overarching goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. So, Minister Solman, if you want to have a really final word, and then we'll call it a close.
Thank you, Amal. Thank you all. Also, I wanted to say that we will look forward for further cooperation with you. So all OECD and the European Commission representatives, one more time, thank you so much. It was very interesting.
Well, I would like to thank you very much, Minister Solman. I would like to thank all the panelists again, Minister Rina Solman, Manuela Guillaume, Director, DG Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion, the European Commission, Karen Maguire, Head of the Local Employment Skills and Innovation Division at the OECD, Antonella Noia, of course, everybody knows, have the Head of the Social Economy and Innovation Unit at the OECD, and of course, Helen Mikov, Director of Social Enterprise Estonia, and last but not least, all the people who helped organize this lounge, Martin Lowry and Mina Harog from the Ministry of Interior in Estonia, but also on our side, other ladies. And I would like to dearly thank Sorel Stewart, who assisted with the organization of the meeting. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much for all this insightful conversation. Stay safe and see you soon in Tallinn or in Paris.
Yes,
thank you.
Welcome.
Bye. Bye.
Forward to see you in
Thank you
Tallinn.
very much.
Yes. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.